Welcome to Doc Working, the Whole Physician podcast, where physicians share their stories of life outside of work. Top life coaches share expert tips on how to accelerate your path toward what matters most to you. And financial experts and side gig experts can help you on the trajectory toward financial security. Thank you for joining us, and let's get started with today's episode.
I have so much suppressed emotion in myself, I cannot be healthy. But when I release this emotion or somehow process it, it will decrease tinnitus again. So this was a big part of my healing process, the psychotherapy or mental work and emotional release, because I had really a lot of suppressed emotions, mainly crying because I'm a man.
Welcome to Doc Working, the Whole Physician podcast. Your presence here brings a genuine smile to my face, and I'm truly delighted you've joined us today. I'm Jen Barna, a practicing physician and also your host on this journey. Together with the help of remarkable expert guests on the podcast, we'll learn tools and strategies to process stress, manage time, and nurture our well-being. I'm here to help you define and build your personal life around what's most essential and meaningful to you, and then align your medical career to accommodate. That's what we're all about. On today's episode, get ready for a riveting experience with an exceptional guest, poised to share his story, and it may just reshape your perspective and give you direction to reflect on your own life. The tale you're about to hear is going to answer a burning question you've probably never thought of. What does curing chronic tinnitus have in common with curing chronic pain and curing other chronic symptoms? And what are the tangible ways you can effectively tackle chronic stress head on? What are ways to calm your central nervous system, and how can that be a powerful tool for your long-term wellness? This episode is about profound transformation and healing, and holds the power to touch not only your life, but the lives of those around you. My guest today is Peter Studenik, the brilliant mind behind the best-selling masterpiece, I Cured My Tinnitus, My Path from Tinnitus to Profound Transformation and Genuine Healing. Without further ado, let's dive right in and hear straight from Peter the details of his journey and how you can apply his experience to healing in your own life. I'm so happy to welcome you, Peter Studenik, as a guest today on Doc Working, the Whole Physician podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm so interested in hearing your story because you have been through a journey to alleviate a chronic problem. In your case, it was a severe case of tinnitus. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is correct.
And
I had tinnitus for 4 years.
And the reason I'm so curious to hear your story is because it really ties into something that we've talked about a couple of times on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've talked about chronic pain in some episodes with Dr. David Clark and with Dr. Howard Schubiner. I can link to those episodes in the show notes. And we've talked about chronic stress with Stephanie Shaw and how she was able to alleviate some severe symptoms that she describes in an episode as well. And so I'm so curious to hear about your story and what you went through to completely alleviate tinnitus that had plagued you really, and was so to such a dangerous level in your life. Would you step back through and tell us about your story?
All right. So my tinnitus started after a loud concert. And from the beginning, I was quite afraid, but first days I was not terrified. But then it didn't go away. I thought it will go away I had it maybe a few times in the past after the party or concert, and it just go away in the night or in one day. In this case, it didn't go away for a week. So I started the research on internet, and I found out that this ringing in ears is a tinnitus, that it is incurable, and that nobody don't know how to cure it or get rid of it. And then I go to medical specialist, and he told me the same. And from the time I started to be really terrified. I was not able to sleep. I was not able to concentrate on anything. And I just feel desperate. And yeah, it was very, very hard for me. This was like few months. I was like visiting a lot of medical specialists, maybe 30 or something like that, around Europe. But there was no hope still. And I was like going to deeper and deeper despair. But I don't give up on anything in my life. So I didn't give up, and I go to another medical specialist. And after 3 years, I found on internet Dr. Pavel Yastrebov from, I think he's from University of Yale. And he was writing about tinnitus from a neurological point of view, not from ENT point of view.
Can you spell his name for us?
I'm not good at spelling, but can we put it to the description? It is Pavel, Pawel, and Yastrebov is Jastreboff. But it will be easy to find him. And I wrote all his work and his book, and I immediately knew that this is the case, that this is the root cause of tinnitus, not the ears, because ears are okay in most of tinnitus cases, but that there is something in brain, especially, or there is a part of brain, it's called hypothalamus, and it's the filter of all these things around us. So when you are hearing me, you are not hearing, for example, I don't know, birds or something, some noises around you, because you are focused on me. And also when you are in the party or in the pub, when someone calls Peter, you will not know, you won't notice it. But if someone calls,
because it's not my name, but you would.
Yeah, and when someone calls Jen, you will immediately turn,
right,
because your brain knows the Jen is important sound for you and needs to be amplified. Peter is not important, and you don't care about it, or your brain don't care about it.
So when you read this work, it made you realize, if I'm understanding you correctly, that the reason that your tinnitus was persisting was because your brain had made it a priority to hear this sound above other sounds.
Yeah, there is natural.
Because of your despair, do you think? Because of your level of fear, or what do you think the reason for that is?
Level of stress and fear, and how to say, toxicity in my body, like toxic food and junk food, etc. A lot of sweets, because all these, there are a lot of stressors. When you are in stress, your brain works differently. Your brain is increasing some things. For example, when you are in the forest with friends in the day, you are just listening to forest, you have good time, you don't listen some strange noises. But when you go there alone in the night, you will be able to hear some noise like 500 meters from you because it is important for survival. And when you are in stress, your brain works differently because like cortisol, adrenaline are released in your bloodstream, and these things are increased. So what I found out or with Pavel Yastrebov is that there is a sound in the ears. Everybody has the sound. There was research in some medical school, and students were sent to soundproof room, and they told them, okay, we will play you some sounds and you will tell us what it was. And they go there one by one and go out, and one said, I heard ringing in ears, I heard whistling in ears, and other like some noises, but they didn't play them anything. And 90% of these like healthy students without tinnitus heard tinnitus. And the problem is not fixing the ears because this sound is natural, but fixing the brain to not amplify this natural sound. And the brain can amplify the sound to like enormous levels. So it cannot be like bearable. And this is the root cause.
And this is a very similar concept to the brain interpreting chronic pain as a very amplified signal. Yeah. And the concept that Dr. Howard Schubiner, Dr. Sarno, who Schubiner
I love him
with, and Dr. David Clark are talking about with pain reprocessing therapy and emotional awareness and expression therapy. And physicians like Dr. Philippe Douillon, who came on the podcast as well, he's a neurologist who works with people, again, to retrain the brain in the context of chronic illness and chronic problems. So I'm really fascinated with what you're saying. And I think if you're someone who's listening to the podcast and you're thinking, well, I have tinnitus or I don't have tinnitus, is this relevant to me? I would say it's relevant to all of us because, especially, of course, if you do have tinnitus, it's highly relevant, but it also is applicable to other situations, so many other situations. And what you said a moment ago, when you said, when you're in stress, your brain works differently.
Yeah.
As medical professionals, we experience chronic stress, and that can lead us into a situation of burnout, and it can also lead to more extreme difficulties with coping with that stress. And there are ways and tools to be able to cope with the stress. And I'm very curious if this ties into neuroplasticity as well. So this is something that I think is applicable to every listener. And I want to hear more about what you did. So tell me what happened. You read the book. At this point, you've suffered for 3 years with this. The medical professionals that you've seen have been unable to help you with classic treatments. And so what happened next?
Okay. So when I understood what is the root cause of tinnitus, that it is like brain, I started to study brain, how to like calm it down or how to fix it, how to start working the brain like normal, like for people without tinnitus. And I found out that the main reason of this brain malfunction is stress. And stress can be emotional when you are your boss, or you have like some terms, a lot of work. This is like the emotional or psychical stress. But there can be like chemical stress or toxic stress, which is food, water, air we breathe, everything. Then there is a stress where you don't sleep properly. And there is also one part of stress, which is unresolved traumas from your childhood or from, I don't know, from war or something like that. And also the source of big stress is also like some unresolved emotions. When you are suppressing emotions, especially in my case as a man, I was not allowed to cry because boys don't cry. And I didn't cry for 18 years. So I started to look at the possibility to reduce my stress level in all these areas. And I knew that when I will be able to do it, I will cure my tinnitus. And there was two things. First one is that Pavel Yastrebov find out that some noises are like calming this nervous system down. It's a white noise and pink noise. He tested a lot of noises, but these are the best ones. Also, when you have a child which cannot sleep, there are white noise teddy bears in the market. So you just press some play button and give this teddy bear to the bed with your kid, and it will fall asleep because this white or big noise, it is like calming everybody's system down. And second, what I invented, it's a measurement of tinnitus. And I was able to every morning measure my tinnitus objectively. So I knew that if my tinnitus is stronger than the day before or lower. And when I knew this, I made a tinnitus diary. And I was trying to find out what is increasing my tinnitus and what is decreasing my tinnitus. And when I found this out, I just worked like eliminating these things which were increasing and adding more things which were decreasing my tinnitus.
So can you give me an example of something you might notice? Say today, back when you were, first of all, let me just ask you, are you having any symptoms of tinnitus now?
No. And okay. I hear silence.
Okay. So that's wonderful news. Okay. And at the time when you were developing this method of journaling, what would be an example of something that you would notice, say yesterday, the tinnitus was less and today it's worse?
Okay.
How would you break down what might contribute to it?
Okay. It's like I made this every day. I wrote what I eat or eaten, what I drank, who I met, and what I did. So every day I made this. And second day I put volume of my tinnitus. And I continue this for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, I look at the diary and was trying to find the connections. So if my tinnitus was strong on Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday next week, and I ate bananas day before, I knew that bananas are increasing my tinnitus. And for example, this was the case. Or chocolate, or red wine, or beer, or what was else? Any junk food, any chips, and what was increasing my tinnitus was also the fried items.
Very interesting. And how much did the food specifically, recognizing that and changing eating, what percentage of improvement did you notice just from doing that?
Okay, I would say 20 to 30%.
The reason I asked that, and I'm fascinated by your answer because it's consistent with what Stephanie Shaw told me in another, she was
really nice.
Yeah, you can hear her episode. It was episode number 223. Okay. Stephanie had multiple symptoms that included, they were very different from tinnitus, but she had very serious symptoms of, she was beginning to have numbing and pain, chronic pain, headaches, tingling, and nerve pain in her extremities. And she was going to numerous physicians and no one could figure out what was going on. And initially she made a shift in nutrition, and it made a significant impact, but it was when she began journaling and recognizing the stress that it went away completely. So similarly,
that's great.
First made the shift in nutrition and then made the shift with journaling. So I'm very fascinated to hear how you were specifically able to notice these differences. It's really helpful hearing this story. So what happened after that? So you noticed a big difference. You changed your diet. Did you continue to go on like a 2 week on, 2 week off journaling, or were you continually journaling and always looking back at the last 2 weeks? How did you move from, how long, I guess, is one question. How long did it take to notice all of the dietary changes you needed to make? And were you making other changes at that time, or strictly focused on diet at first?
Okay, it took me 9 months. Pavel Jastrebov recommends 1.5 years, but I was okay after 9 months. And there is one very important thing about tinnitus, that when you suffer from tinnitus, you subjectively hear it every day the same. It is like very high, and you are not able to say if it is stronger or lower than the day before. So because of that, you need to measure it. And when I changed the diet, I saw that it is like decreasing a little bit. And it also calmed my nervous system down, because I see like good progress. It was not huge progress, but I saw that it is going down. I said, okay, I'm on the wrong path, and my nervous system a little bit like calmed down. And what was next? Second thing is like the sound therapy. This was like discovered by this Pavel Jastrebov, Dr. Pavel Jastrebov. It is white noise or pink noise, and you are listening to for several hours a day. And what is pink noise doing is like calming your nervous system down, but also it breaks fixation on tinnitus, because there is second like permanent sound in your life, and your brain is like curious, what is that? And I need to take care about that as well, not only about tinnitus, and you are breaking this fixation.
Can you say that again?
Yeah. So when you have tinnitus, you are really focused on tinnitus. Your brain increases it. The tinnitus is all your life. Like nothing other matters, just tinnitus, because you hear it and you are increasing it, and it's like vicious cycle. Right? Like afraid of it and you increase it. But when you put there another sound, your brain start to take care about this another sound as well. And it's not only about tinnitus, but about this another sound as well. So first you are focused on tinnitus, then on pink noise, and then as neurological you are like focused on many different sounds. So it breaks the fixation or tunnel vision, or tunnel hearing, I would say.
One other question, going back to your mention of being able to measure the level of tinnitus, despite the fact that subjectively you don't hear a difference. How did you figure out how to do that?
Okay. So I had the MP3 player with the earbuds, but you can use also the sound generators from Phonak or Siemens, etc. And what I did every morning, you need to set up the volume of pink or white noise below your tinnitus level. So your tinnitus is here and pink noise is here. And every day I was trying to set up the volume of pink noise as low as audible. And when I had a good day and my tinnitus was low, I was able to set up volume to, for example, 10. And I still hear the ping noise. When I set it up to 9, I was not able to hear ping noise, only tinnitus. But when my day was bad, I set up volume, for example, to 15. And when I put it to 14, I was not able to hear it. I heard only tinnitus. And by this, I know that my tinnitus is better or worse that day.
That is absolutely brilliant.
Okay, thank you.
It makes perfect sense once you explain it. And pink noise is the same as white noise, or is that different?
White noise are all frequencies playing same volume, and the pink noise are high frequencies are lower volume. Because some people with tinnitus has also like sensitivity to sound and is better or pleasurable for them, this pink noise. But both noises are equally effective. And you will not hear the difference. And both like sound as like very distant waterfall, like 1 kilometer waterfall from you. It's like, it's very nice, pleasant sound.
Okay. And so for someone listening, I think hopefully if they're struggling with this problem, hopefully they're starting to have some hope. If you're listening, I think like me, you're probably sitting on the edge of your seat wondering what happened next. So it took 9 months of going through this process to completely resolve your symptoms. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So initially you began the journaling, you noticed the difference from day to day, and you had a way to measure it, and you changed your diet, and you were treating yourself with sound therapy.
Yeah.
Is that right?
And also when I started the diet, I saw it is decreasing. So I was curious about other things. And for example, in my case, I found out when I go to roller skating, my tinnitus is higher next day. So I called my physiotherapist and she told me to come, and she saw me how I'm like roller skating, and she told me that I have some disbalance in my neck and I need to fix it. And then I was working with her maybe for 2 months on this fixation. And after that, I go roller skating and it didn't increase anymore. And these were these easy parts, and we will go to the harder parts.
And so with that experience, what did that teach you in terms of how you are living your life now in terms of prevention?
Okay. In terms of prevention, okay, I eat like simple foods. I like the books from Dan Buettner about blue zones. Blue zones are places in the world where people live like 100 years in full health. And I'm like, there is a book behind me. It's a cookbook from blue zones, and I eat this food. So I eat.
Too.
Really? Okay. So
we'll put that in the show notes as well.
Okay. So no processed foods, no sugar or little bit sugar. If alcohol, then red wine, very dry red wine, especially from Sardinia, or in US you have great wines, but this one, and yeah, like simple foods, and like I eat organic, and I don't eat very much meat. I eat meat maybe 1 a week maximum. But if you, for this diet, avoid any chemicals or artificial ingredients, including some coloring ingredients or preservating or etc.
That improved the symptoms 20 to 30%.
Yeah.
Tell me, and then you had the sound therapy, and then you noticed other things that were going on in your life, and from the journaling you were able to see that it impacted whether you had symptoms or not. And was there, so in addition to the roller skating, were there other things that you noticed and you grew?
I must say, in half of cases of tinnitus sufferers, this is enough for them to cure what we saw about. But in my case, unfortunately, I had to go deeper, and I started to go to psychotherapy. And I found out that I didn't cry for 18 years. It was normal for me, but it was not normal for therapists, definitely. And she gave me some book about some stories, and I wrote that book. And after 18 years, I started crying, and I cried 4 hours in a row. And I remember after this crying, I still had the tinnitus, but it didn't bother me at all. And I knew also that if I have so much suppressed emotion in myself, I cannot be healthy. But when I release this emotion or somehow process it, it will even decrease tinnitus again. So this was a big part of my healing process, the psychotherapy or mental work and emotional release, because I had really, really a lot of suppressed emotions, mainly crying because I'm a man.
And I think there are probably a lot of listeners who fall into the 50% like you did, that's probably why they're listening, because they're looking, they're out there looking for something that they haven't heard yet. And the suppressed emotions, not only would people relate to that, of course, I think most people probably on some level would relate to that. And also, did you have some parts of your personality that were just very highly driven, maybe perfectionist? Tell me about how would that have tied in? Did you find that perhaps that was a personality that might lead you in this direction? Were you an athlete, for example? Other things where we see that people who are highly driven, and that can be a good thing professionally, of course, but it can also lead you to maybe neglect your own well-being.
Yes. Where start? Okay. In the time, I was a director of department in big corporation. I had a restaurant company, and I work maybe 12 or 14 hours a day for maybe 5 years in a row. So I was always in work, always in stress, no stress release, no relaxing, anything. So I was working very, very much. And part of my healing was that I quit the job. I sold the company, and I found a job which was not so well paid, but was more fulfilling and more funny for me. So I like this job. And also during the psychotherapy, I found out that I'm not very happy at all in my marriage. And after 1 year or this my 9 months of therapy, we separated and I got divorced with my ex-wife. And she was like not bad woman, but we were not compatible. And we were suffering both in this relationship. But without tinnitus, I will be still with her. And when I like release these like big stressors, like management position or director position, my like restaurant and my marriage, the tinnitus like decreased almost to zero.
And how have you been able to maintain your well-being in addition to, did that require lifestyle changes, or were you already financially in a position where it wasn't impactful for you? I imagine people listening may say to themselves, well, how could I, I know I should make a change, but how can I do it? People often feel trapped when in reality they're not. So really, I guess what I'm trying to say is kudos to you for figuring that out and taking the steps to protect yourself, because ultimately, if you don't have your health, nothing is worth that. And for the people who are watching and saying, I know I should do that, but I don't know how. Do you hear that question often? And what do you say?
Yeah, I didn't know how at the time as well. And I encourage people to measure tinnitus and start with small things, avoiding fast food, avoiding like fried things, avoiding junk food, avoiding processed food. And when you see that it is decreasing, it will give you power to continue on these harder things. And yeah, it took me like 9 months to like realize that these are really like these problems which needs to be solved to get healthy. And I had this therapist, and we were trying to find out some transmission which will be okay for me. Because if I just quit the job, I will be even in bigger stress than before. So it was not like that. I found another job. It was not so well paid, but I was able to like live with new income. It was smaller. For example, I sold my sport car and buy normal car. So yeah, I had to adjust my lifestyle a bit, but I was not suffering from like poverty or something like that. I was like living a normal life, but I was not living a luxury life. And also with the food, when I'm cooking every day at home, and it's very cheap. When you're cooking at home, it's very cheap. Even if you are like eating organic, it's still very cheap, because like vegetables are very cheap. When you go to restaurant, it is junk food, and it is 3 times like more expensive. So I encourage people, okay, like measure tinnitus, start with simple things. For someone, or there is no simple thing like for everybody. For someone is symptomatic one thing, for another symptomatic another thing. Just start with that. See that your tinnitus is decreasing, and then find friends, family to help you solve this thing. If you are like not happy in your work, or it is very stressful and not like sleeping because of work or because of your relationship, find friends, find therapists, and try to find the way out. But it's not cutting. It is like process. It needs to be how to say that. It needs to be pleasant. It is like going out of your control, of your comfort zone, but no extremes. And for someone, for example, if you are not happy in marriage, you can talk to your wife, and you can go to therapy together. It's not about divorce. or if you are not happy in your company. In my case, the company was not bad, but I was in the position and I was not able to, like, it was too much for me. So I would go to my manager. I said, okay, I need to go to lower position because this is very stressful for me. Can you help me with that? So yeah, but by this way, I think very important thing during the healing of everyone, chronic pain, tinnitus, every other conditions is TLC, tender love care. So no extremes. Go from your comfort zone, but don't go to extremes. Don't go to bigger stress.
And do I understand correctly that the TLC actually needs to come from you to yourself?
Yeah.
Which is something that we as healthcare professionals are trained to give to other people, but we are basically trained to neglect ourselves. And so I think for someone who is feeling overwhelmed and knowing that they are overstressed in a work situation that can lead to physical ailments.
Okay.
And people may be trying to figure out what to do about that. They may feel that they don't have power to do something, but in fact they do. And what you're describing is a pathway that through self-examination and through journaling and really tuning in to what's going on in your environment and in your perceptions and in your past, processing emotions, which sounds easier than it actually is. I don't know. What are your thoughts about the emotional processing? Was that a quick turnaround for you, or was that, you said the 4 hours once you got to a point where you...
Yeah, it was only beginning. Yeah, it took me 9 months of like every week therapy and coaching as well. So, and for me, it was the hardest part because like release emotions or express emotions for me was like taboo or no way. And yeah, it took me a lot of time to start to cry in front of someone, because when I was crying for 4 hours in a row, I was alone. I felt terrible that I felt like I'm a girl now, but I was alone at least. But it took me another like 8 months to start to cry in front of something or say, okay, it hurts me, don't do it. Or I'm angry on that, or I'm angry on you because you did this. So it took me a really, really long time to start expressing emotions. And the good thing about expressing emotion is that when you start to express them, the people which love you stay with you, and the people which don't love you go away. It happens automatically.
That's really important. I feel.
Yeah.
Will you say that one more time in case someone's just noticing?
So when you are expressing emotions, and expressing emotions could be like crying, and expressing emotions also saying, don't do it, it hurts me, or I'm angry because you did this or didn't do this. And when you are expressing emotions, the people which loves you stay with you, and people which don't love you will go away. Because people which don't love you will say you are too sensitive, or I don't know, you are a girl, don't cry. But people which love you will say, okay, I didn't know that it hurts you, and they will change their behavior because they love you and they would like to have this relationship.
That's something else that I've heard before also in the conversation with Stephanie Shaw, where she said that initially she began to journal imaginary conversations that she felt she didn't have the courage to have with people around her. She noticed that there was toxicity in some of her interactions with people. And over time, through journaling these conversations, she then noticed that she had the courage to speak with people. And she said she was pleasantly surprised that people were very open to it and responsive to it.
Yeah. Most people are open. Yeah, that is very nice, because they just didn't know that they hurt you, or they you get angry on something. But when you told them, they will tune their behavior. But there are some which don't.
Right. Yeah, exactly. By the same token, though, it's helpful to even think of talking with people, because I know there are situations where it just may not occur to you. You may be feeling that you wish someone was doing something differently, or you're afraid the relationship could be in jeopardy. But the idea of actually speaking to the person about it is not something sometimes it's not something we think of as even an option. So it's important.
Yeah, it's very hard. It's really hard, because in the beginning I said avoid junk food. It's easy, but when you don't express what you feel inside, it's very hard to start with that. But small steps with closest friends, and you will see that people are good. Mostly they are good, and yeah, and it will give you more confidence to do it in bigger scale. Talk with your boss or with your colleagues, with your wife, with your mother, with your father. It's very, very, very hard. Or it was hard for me to change it, because I was not talking about this stuff. And for me, I have good friends around me, and I have this therapist, and they helped me a lot. So I think I will not be able to do it alone. Definitely not. So if you are alone, find someone, because it's really hard. We can say, okay, you can only say that, but it's I would run 2 marathons in a row, but this was harder. So get help.
And perhaps a coach can be helpful in that way as well.
Definitely, yeah.
In addition to friends and family, to just help you see things from a different perspective, maybe to reflect things back to you.
Yeah.
And therapy as well could certainly be helpful.
And there is no emotional context when someone is your coach or your therapist. They don't have emotions, because you say something to your wife and she get triggered, because you are in emotional connection with her. And the therapy is safe place, or coaching is safe place, when you can express everything and find out how to communicate to your relates.
That's an excellent point. They're an objective.
Yeah.
They can see everything objectively. They don't have the emotional investment. So
yeah. And we are human, we are emotional, so we are not able to suppress. Unfortunately, we are not robots. So
Peter, you've written a book about this, and I think after listening to this conversation, a lot of people are going to be very interested in reading that, because it sounds like it would be very helpful. Does the book step people through? Tell me a little bit about the book itself. What's the name of it?
Yeah.
And tell me how it presents.
Okay, so book is about my story, how it began, what I underwent before I found a way from tinnitus. There are chapters how to measure your tinnitus, what devices to be used, and then there are 6 steps, and these steps are mainly the changes or area of changes which I made to cure my tinnitus completely. So it's step-by-step process. And if you follow it and you measure it, you will see it is decreasing and then you can choose one step which is like most, or people can choose one step which is most like easy for them, try it properly, and they will see it is decreasing. Then they can try another step until they are like completely, or get complete relief.
What's the name of the book?
The book is I Cured My Tinnitus,
And where
and
can
it
people
is
find it?
available on Amazon.
Okay. Where I Cured My Tinnitus. And also, tell me about the feedback that you've received from the book.
Okay. There are feedbacks, and it is like some people just wrote me, okay, I wrote a book and my tinnitus is gone because I understand and I'm not afraid of my tinnitus anymore, and my nervous system cooled down and it's gone. Then some writing that diet changes help them a lot, and they hear that little bit of tinnitus, but it doesn't bother them anymore, and they don't want to go to this emotional stuff. And there is a part of people which are asking me what therapy I underwent, what is the best way to work with traumas, with unresolved issues, etc. So there are like these three most like feedbacks which I get.
Tremendous. Well, it has been such an honor and a privilege to speak with you. I really appreciate you sharing your story. I think it's going to impact the lives of a lot of listeners and patients of listeners. So thank you so much, Peter Studenik. Thank you for being here with me today on Doc Working, the Whole Physician podcast.
Thank you, Jen, for having me. It was very nice, and I hope it will help.
I'm super excited about this recording, particularly because I think hearing your story is going to impact people, but also I'm really curious how people may be able to extrapolate what you're saying beyond tinnitus and perhaps apply these steps that you have so carefully outlined to their lives in other ways, to chronic pain, for example. It's very similar to what we've heard from, Dr. Howard Schubiner and David Clark. And also it's perhaps applicable to people who are in situations of chronic stress. The story you share about your work, I think, is something that we all should think about in terms of where we are in our own journeys with work and how we can make significant changes that allow us to stay connected to purpose and feel like our work is meaningful, which I think also is a really important part of self-care.
Yeah, definitely. It's like when you are like working in hospital, it's very, very stressful, and admire your work. I could not do it like for one day. I will be burned out after one day, I guess.
Yeah, something that I hear, I actually recently heard a physician who was on the podcast say that we teach ourselves how to cope with what we see at work, and that he said, and in retrospect, all of my coping mechanisms were inadequate, and
Yeah.
so I think that ways to process emotional stress and ways to process work stress and emotional stress, and it does tie together for us who are in situations where we're seeing bad things happen to people at work.
Yeah.
And things that we wish people would not have to go through. When we see that, I think there's an emotional there is an emotional deficit, or there's an emotional expense, I think, and we tend to just file that away and not process it, and that's what we're taught to do. And I think maybe it's time for us to stop and re-examine that and think about ways to actually acknowledge our own emotions tied to what we see and find ways to process those and see if that might be another way to help the nervous system to calm down.
It's very interesting because what I learned during my healing journey is that the stress is not problem, the chronic stress is problem. And what I think these like people which are working in hospital, it's too much suffering, too much like pain, too much like illness, and it's like too much because even in the past, we live, for example, in some community, there was a doctor. And when someone got ill or injured, he cured it, or he like take him, examine him, take some pills or some herbs, I don't know. And he was curing him. But then this doctor go to this garden and like raise some, I don't know, vegetables. Then he was like building his house, and he was hunting animals. So he was not like doctor like 24-hour, 24/7. He was like doctor, and then he was like another things. So he saw all these terrible things, but not so like not so many.
Yeah.
And I think that he had a stress, and then he'll go to the nature and he cut the tree and he got release of this stress, or he calmed down. But when you are like exposed to these stressors every day and every hour, it is very hard to like calm down, and it's very hard to find some like things which will like clear your head, I would say.
Yeah,
because when I go to hospital, I'm afraid as hell.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, that's really true. And of course you work intensively long hours, and then you have other responsibilities outside of that.
Yeah.
So it's not like you go home and you can just walk out and take the rest of the time off. So I think it's really, really important for people to recognize that and then build that time in as required. Like you brush your teeth every day. That's not optional. And I think specifically walking out in nature and connecting to nature, all of these different ways of processing and journaling, meditation, mindfulness, these kinds of concepts. There are tools, in other words, there are tools that you can use that can help you to take control of your schedule, to take control of your time outside of work, and use it in very specific ways that you know can help you and that can make a difference for you. And so just as a takeaway, you know, maybe recognizing that there is help and there is a way out of chronic stress that can be affecting your health, and it can be causing your brain to amplify a serious problem that can be
tinnitus or chronic pain. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again for this terrific conversation. I could talk with you all day. It's so interesting and so timely, and I thank you for your work.
Okay, so maybe we can make some podcast next time, but it will be more about general health or general like stress management. Yeah, it will be good because I'm tinnitus free for maybe 7 years, but I still do a lot of things to avoid any illness in future. So and it's great.
You have a lot of knowledge to share, and I'm very interested, and I think our listeners are going to really appreciate your sincere story and your knowledge that they can put with your tips and recommendations that they can put into action right away. So thank you again, Peter.
And thank you for your great questions.
And I look forward to talking with you again.
Okay, agreed.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us today. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed this episode, I kindly request that you take a moment to leave us a 5-star review wherever you tune into our podcast. Your reviews make a tremendous difference and help others to find us. Please explore our virtual home at docworking.com. That's DOCWORKING.com, where you'll find resources carefully curated to propel you toward the destination you aspire to reach, both in your personal journey and in your meaningful career. It's time to take the leap and gain the tools and support to fully access the power of you.